Well, I'll join you on that walk if it's all right.
Yeah, of course it's okay.
This is a special place for yourself. Steve Silver, you live close by?
I do. I live just a couple of streets away. We moved here permanently in 1979, bought a house. The first thing we did when we bought a house was bought a dog. So I've walked around here since that time.
Right, okay, what should we do? What's her problem?
Right, I think she wants to run around. In 1999, everybody was talking about the millennium, obviously, and what was going to happen in the millennium, and plant trees in the millennium and things like that. So I thought, I'll plant some trees. So every time I brought the dogs out, I took a pocket full of acorns and just planted a few acorns. That's one of mine. That's one of mine. Yeah.
It's good growing land.
It's 20. Well, there's all sorts buried under here. You see, we don't even know what's buried under here.
There's a beautiful specimen of an oak tree, and I love it. Has these wide spreading branches which start from not that far up the trunk, and then you've got like the perfect picture book shape of an oak tree. What height would you say that is now?
It must be 25 feet, maybe.
Yeah, so that's put on well over a foot every year.
Yeah.
So where did you get the acorns from?
Because I'm basically a scientist and my wife's a botanist. I didn't want to just go to an oak tree and get loads and loads of acorns. I wanted some genetic diversity, so I collected them from around Chorlton.
Just had them in the pockets
every time
of
I
your
came
jacket?
out, I filled my pocket up. In fact, this is the jacket, so I just thought I'd put the same jacket on. And this is the dibber that I used.
Pull out your pocket now. It's a little garden dibber. And you just
made
the hole,
dropped an acorn in, put my foot on it, covered it up, and hoped for the best.
And how many did you plant altogether?
Altogether about 300.
And how many came to fruition?
Well, in the first year, about 16 came up, which I thought was, okay. But then in subsequent years, more kept coming up. I've been told that I haven't counted them, but there's over 100 now. And some of them are still coming up, so they're still small saplings.
This is known as Ryebank Fields, and it is an open space with rough scrublands, but it's got trees around the perimeter and through the middle. It's about 11 acres in size, and it's in the Chorlton area in the southern part of the city of Manchester. It is owned by the Manchester Metropolitan University, and they want to develop this land for housing. But it is also, in a way, I could almost say, adopted by the local community who have a very strong connection with this place. And for this week's Open Country, I'm here because what is happening here is that those two sides have very different ideas of what this space should be to a community and to the city. And this is a scenario which is repeated in so many places across our landscape, in cities where there is a need for green space, but also a need for housing. I've come to the Longford Road entrance into Ryebank Fields, and it's lovely to hear the bird song, but of course there's that constant hum of the traffic all the time. It's just a reminder that I am in an urban environment. Oh gosh, there's a heron's just flown across our path.
Yeah.
And I was just about to say, standing here, it's a very basic, raw, muddy, churned up space.
Yeah, it's not pretty. It's not a manicured park, but it's wild, it's green. Yeah, it's raw. It's like nature raw, basically.
I'm standing here with Julie Ryan and Tara Parry, and you are part of a campaign group to save what's called Ryebank Fields.
That's right.
And you live close by, you have personal connections with this space, so paint me a picture which is, if you don't mind me saying, slightly less drab than it is now when you walk in. I know it's the season that's in it, but there is a roughness and a sort of urban decayness about the space.
And the fact is, though, that a lot of the scrubland you see here, I mean, people do say it's wasteland and scrubland, but it's a hugely wonderful environment for wildlife. All this here is blackberry bushes. It's a great place to forage, and it's almost like a living food bank. The amount of we've got wild raspberries, wild blackberries. You come in the summer and it's really alive. You'll hear the birds in the trees. You see, obviously, it's a different colour completely in the summer.
There's parts of the fields we haven't seen yet. There's patches of woodland, and at the back there's the Aspen Grove, which is, well, I have always called it the magic forest. When we come here with children, they change. They start to engage with you. Their behaviour's different, and we just don't have this kind of landscape around so much.
Well, this is a good opportunity to ask you, Tara, when did you first hear about the development plans for this open space?
Probably at least 2 years ago. We were waiting for the framework to come out. I think it came out in June, July 2019.
What they did on the back of that was they increased the original plan for 70 executive homes to 120 mixed tenure homes. But there is a small percentage of affordable housing in there, which sounds better, doesn't it, on paper? But what it doesn't do for local people is it doesn't solve the actual problems, which are very much to do with traffic.
And that brings me on to the problem of pollution. The trees and the vegetation in the fields they're a carbon sink. So grasses are really beneficial in absorbing carbon, plus all the trees, 1,400 trees, plus our millennium oaks. So they might own the land, but they don't own our air.
We'll hear from the university, obviously. I'm here with you now in Rye Bank Fields. I wanted to see the place. Could we just explore a little bit more so I can get a sense of the space?
Yes. What we're going to do is we're going to walk northwards over towards the Trafford boundary, which is the line of trees in the distance. And in so doing, we're walking in the steps of the Anglo-Saxons because we're about to cross the historic Nico Ditch, which separates the two fields.
This is the Nico Ditch. It's very muddy.
Yeah. I mean, every time I walk through here, I get a sense of history.
I mean, there's a lot of positive things you're saying about the place, and the more I'm in it, the more I'm enjoying the experience of it. First glimpse, I have to say, I thought it was pretty dire looking, but as I've come in, I can see the lie of the land and the vegetation that you have and how glorious it's going to look through the different seasons.
It really does.
But it's not yours. It belongs to the university, and they want to sell it and houses be built on it. So that's the bottom line.
The thing is, though, we have been custodians of this land for over 23 years. We have worked on the land. We've engaged with the land. You know, somebody actually maintained the path through the Aspen Grove. We've all maintained that path. You know, somebody's planted millennium oak trees. Somebody's planted the start of a community orchard. And people stop and talk to each other here.
Why is the adjacent Longford Park not for the community then? Why? It's an open space.
You can't interact with it in the same way. It's quite sterile. There's flower beds, but they're planted like regiment. You know, there's just it's just not the same, and it just doesn't have that diversity and variety of plants, shrubs, wildlife. I mean, I think we all in the campaign, not just Julie and I, but we all probably just go and have a little cry sometimes because it's really emotional for us to think that we are at risk of losing these trees, the stories, the history. It's really heartbreaking, but we don't dwell on that too much because, you know, I say to Julie, I can't even accept that thought, and we will manifest this and we will win, and we're not going to give up.
Yeah, we won't give up. We'll be changed the trees. We're not going away.
We will. We're not.
We've been here too long to go away.
It's about 4 or 5 metres wide, a couple of metres deep, somewhere along this alignment.
All right then. Okay. In our visit here, we have heard it mentioned there's something called Nico Ditch. So as the head of archaeology at the University of Salford, Dr. Michael Neville, you are probably the best man to ask about what that is, where it is, explain it.
Nico Ditch is one of these long-lived boundaries that you get along the Welsh-English border and in the Pennines and northern England. We know that this ditch which you can sort of see in front of us here. So there's a broad swathe of landscape here. So they've cut back the nettles and the brambles, and you can just see a sort of depression in there, which is a 19th, 20th century drainage alignment. But that's a recut. That's the latest recut of this ditch that we know is here in about 1200 AD, and almost certainly is a good deal older than that. So this site here is first mentioned in land deeds around about 1200. They call it the Great Ditch or Mickle Ditch. Nico Ditch is a corruption of that.
Oh, I see. And what was its purpose?
Oh gosh, how long have you got? This is one of the issues. There's three thoughts: land boundary, drainage ditch, or a defence against the Vikings. There's this tradition that it was dug in a day and a night against the Vikings in the middle of the 9th century. This is a boundary ditch that we've tracked for over 8 kilometres.
Across this landscape?
Across this landscape. We go eastwards from here. We're in Longford, which is on the Trafford-Manchester City boundary. It goes across the middle of the city of Manchester, but through Plattfields, on into Tameside, Denton, Aldenshaw, which is where it finishes up at a piece of former mossland, Ashton Moss.
But looking at it, it's not in great repair. I couldn't have identified it as a 1200s ditch. It may be actually even earlier than that. It could be an early medieval boundary ditch. Think of Offers Dyke or Watts Dyke. Does it then need to be protected in terms of the potential development of this site?
Yes, it does. Now, I know that the owner of the land and the developer have both recognised that. The Greater Manchester Archaeological Advisory Service, who provide the planning advice for Greater Manchester, have highlighted this as an important monument that it needs protecting, and any works around it will need to respect that monument.
I have a chance now to have a chat with Michael Taylor, who is with Manchester Metropolitan University. So can I just ask you a few sort of very bare questions? Why do you want to sell the land?
Well, the university is a good citizen in Manchester. The City Council have approached the university and said that this suburban site has the opportunity to be able to address Manchester's very acute needs for housing. And as a university, we've consolidated a number of sites, not just this one, but over a longer period of time, so that we're much more of a city centre university.
But to do that, you would have to sell Rye Bank Field.